Hello everyone. Thank you very much, Selene, for the introduction, and thanks to Domus Academy for inviting me to moderate this conversation with my former student, Rüya. I'm really excited to be here today with you. Okay, let me give like some basic data for people that are listening. I'm Irene Sartor. I'm a freelancer designer. And like I cover the role of course leader of the master course in product design some years ago. That a very precious experience. They gave me the opportunity to meet very interesting and talented people as Rüya, the star of this episode of Connecting the Dots. And that happened 7 years ago, as we recall
Yes,
before.
incredible.
First, as a first thing, let me say to all of you that, and I'm spoiling a little bit, but the career path of Rüya is pretty impressive and so well targeted and so coherent with her creative personality. And I'm sure this webinar could be very interesting and useful for everyone, of course, but especially for the students that are listening to us, that they are right now at the beginning of their professional path. So now that I'm embarrassed at you, Rüya, shall we start?
Yes. Okay, it's really crazy to think it's 7 years. So I share the screen, then we can start. Okay.
So as probably you remember, I really love to follow the process step by step. Yes. So let's start this interview from the very step zero, your background. So if you can tell something about you, where and what did you study before Domus Academy experience?
Yes, sure. So, okay, going like this. So first of all, as you ask, I will tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm from Istanbul, Turkey, as we just mentioned, from 1991. I studied in Istanbul Technical University, which is like Polytechnic of Istanbul, sort of, an architecture faculty in product design, industrial product design, actually. And then during my studies, I came to Milan to do Erasmus in Politecnico di Milano. And during my Erasmus studies, I took only communication design classes to learn something new, which was a little bit of a crazy move because I didn't know anything about graphic design. And in one semester, I had to complete crazy projects of city branding and a bunch of other classes and improve a lot of softwares. But from there, I learned so much that's like countless. And when I got back, I had done a couple of internships. Maybe if there are some Turkish people listening, they may be familiar with these brands. And then in 2014, I completed my studies, but I couldn't graduate because I had one more internship, which I then started working for this glass company in Turkey. They are quite a big production. They have a big production site, and then they were doing special collections. I had done everything there, like from product design to graphic design and like a variety of things. And while I was working there first as an intern and then an extended intern, I applied for a competition, which I think brings the new part of the journey.
Okay, so at this point, I'm curious to ask you, first of all, how you get to choose Domus Academy and what is expectation you had in the very beginning?
I mean, if I'm honest, I've been to Milan for 6 months, but I knew the city, so it was quite, and everybody was talking that design is Milan and it's Italian and so on. So I started taking Italian classes when I was actually in university, just by an architect neighbor's advice. So for me, it was, okay, I know a little bit Italian, I know Milano, so maybe I can check the courses, but also that, of course, Domus Academy in Turkey has such prestigious name. So I applied to the competition of Domus Academy with Magis, which I found online. Then I got the second place and the scholarship. So it was the perfect fit. I didn't have to think. I could just jump into this directly after the school. And so that's how I how I chose Domus.
Yeah, so the journey began.
Yes.
And do you remember your first impression, like about Domus, but also about the Milanese contest? Like I can imagine some cultural crash.
Yes, of course. I mean, first of all, I'm from a technical university initially. So all the things, they were all about like, you know, we had common classes with engineers and so on. So everything was very much like rules and very strict and yeah, very cubicle. And if I'm honest, when I started at Domus, it was like crazy. So we are free now. We can do. What do you mean? It was a little bit stressful for me. Like for me, the difficult part was not the school set. It was the mentality fit in. It was this all open creativity, and it was very interesting to see like famous designers in the faculty. Like you go to school and then there is this designer and then this designer, and you can just go and talk to them, which was not very common in Turkey, especially. In Italy, the famous designers are worldwide famous designers. In Turkey, maybe they're locally famous, but so yeah, it was very, very interesting for me. I have to say that it's like the creativity and like being in a faculty, which is not like a school, but it's more like an academy that you can actually talk to people. Networking is the main thing. So that was, I think, the biggest difference that I felt there.
Yeah, definitely was also one of our main goals. That's why also we try to always connect you student with also young professionals that actually are like getting a career in order exactly to compose a sort of a network. So if I remember well, so you attended different workshops. So
yes.
Can you pick? Okay, can you pick one as your favorite with like which one has been the most meaningful one for you?
Yes, sure. Yes, they were all very interesting and differently challenging. And also because before I always worked individually in my previous experiences. Even when I worked in a company, they were giving a project and then you would have an advisor. But in Domus, I experienced really working as a team, which was one of the biggest struggles for me. But the final project we did, first of all, the client was Fontanarte, and it was a very interesting. I love lighting design, and you know, Fontana is such a design-oriented company. Then Philippe Tabet, which was our designer for that project, which he is such a sweet person, so I think that also made it very nice. And we were a really nice team. So we were like one designer, one architect, like one Turkish, one French, one Indian, and a Chinese. So it was like very culturally interesting.
So many different points of view.
Yes, exactly. It was very, very nice, but we blended in perfectly. It was such a nice project and I enjoyed it so much. That's definitely the project I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I remember very well the project, and was also very appreciated from Fontanarte and from Philippe Tabet as well. And like with what you feel you get most from this workshop? Was it more about like working in a team with different backgrounds, as you said, or like you have a special let's say lesson that you got from it?
I mean, if I'm honest, like from all the workshops, I think in Domus has given me the most important thing that it has given to me was to learn how to sell your project, or to express your idea, not just sell in a sense that it's like sell in money wise, but it's just to express yourself. And then like, okay, how do you tell this story? How do you make this presentation so it has these surprises in it, or it explains the idea the best? So I remember like when I entered to the school, maybe design wise, yes, I have been designing and doing maybe similar projects. Maybe that wasn't about the projects. It was more about like how you express this idea and then pass it to the others in the most meaningful way.
Yeah.
So I think again here, that was like the most important learning for me.
And would like to also recall something more related to the overall year of Domus Academy, like some lessons that maybe you are still carrying with you still today?
Yeah, I mean, definitely presentation skills. And then presentation skills is like I improved a lot. And also not just presentation in the format of presentation, but
Yeah,
articulating
like
the ideas. That was the thing. And then of course being a team, which I'm an individual person as a designer, so I like to sit down sometimes, even today with my team. I prefer, sometimes I don't tell anybody, I just do that project by myself, which that's a little bit also a personal choice. But in Domus you didn't have that option. They would kill you in the project. No, so that teaches a lot, especially working with corporate companies nowadays. I have to know how
deal
to balance
with people. Yes.
Yes, so you cannot just tell them this is it, because it's a big company, they have a design team, so you need to sort of balance. And then I always go back to the idea of like, how were we doing in Domus?
Yeah, cool. Happy to hear that. Okay, so let's move from that year and let's jump to the next phase. So your next steps after Domus Academy, because okay, since I know your story, and I feel like the beginning, the very beginning of your professional journey is really relevant and inspiring. So would you tell us about this chapter of your story?
Sure, of course. So, I mean, you know, I'm being the presenter here. Everybody expects this like a perfect story, that there are no errors or there are no like ups and downs. But this was the point. It was so down actually for me. And so I had the opportunity, I interviewed a couple of companies to do internship, and one of them was Claudio Bellini. And then it was one of those like big Italian design studios. They have such great designs, they have a big name. And I got the interview, and then they confirmed my internship, and then I started working. But when I started working there, it was like we were 3 interns and 3 employees. And it was a lot of workload, and there were no clear directions of anything. So I got super lost, and I went, after 3 days, I went back to Irene. I said, I don't think I can do this, because it's so not, I'm not happy there. And Irene was like, no, Rüya, it's not that much of a time. You have to push it. You have to do it. It's such good name. You're a good designer. You can do this. This is going to make a big difference for you. And I was really almost crying. I mean, I'm sure she remembers. I remember the second we were in the career service sitting all together, and I was like, okay, I have to go back. There is no chance, because I want to do this. So I go back. And then, so these pictures you are seeing is after 2 to 3 years of my experience at Claudio Bellini, which has taught me so much, because I started in a place that I didn't like personally. But then I realized, if you don't like something, but if you are learning from it, you have the chance to change it a little bit according to yourself. If you're bold enough, and if you're driven enough, and also hardworking, obviously adding to them, they also give you the space. You become part of it. Yeah, you become part of it. So I pushed it so hard, actually. And when I quit 3 years ago, the team was around 15 people. Today, the team is 20 people. So it has been a big change also for the studio, which was an amazing journey for me. But yes, when I started, it was a little bit, it was very, very difficult. I mean, very, very difficult. Also culture, Italian, trying to learn Italian and all that.
Milanese
lifestyle. Yes, it
classic Milanese studio.
yes, it wasn't easy. It's not like a corporate company. It was a lot of work. But then, yeah, so I tell you a little bit about, if you like, the whole experience in
because so you started there as an internship, and then you continued to work there for 3 years, right?
Actually 5 years.
5 years.
5 years I worked there. So I started as an intern, and then we had an internship in the middle of the school. And when I finished the internship, they wanted to hire me. So I was doing the final project while I was also already working at Claudio Bellini. And so the first years, just to give you an idea, I mean, if you have looked at my portfolio or my website, maybe you know a little bit my style, but just to give you a hint. So when you start, it's not like you sit down and you start designing, but they give you some sketches and then you try to make some sense out of it. So this was the first project I got, which actually had gotten me hired. So I had done this sketch that you see on the left top part. And in 1.5 days, I made it like modeled, photoshopped, and then presented to Natuzzi Italia, which is one of the biggest producers in Italy. And then in the same fair, like really presenting, like my ideas on the background, and I was working not only the sketches they give me, but I was doing also extra projects without telling them, and then presenting them to Claudio Bellini at the same time. So one of the other projects that I personally designed got to be presented in the first fair of like Salone del Mobile in the upcoming year. So it was like such an honoring thing. Now when I look at the sofa, it's very simple. It's not, but it means so much to me. And then in the following years with Natuzzi Italia, I have done a lot of projects. They were like sort of like I was responsible from them. So I had done all these products, which are actually also a little bit Claudio Bellini, but also with my touch into it. And with this experience and learnings, Claudio Bellini also had some art directions. So one of the art direction projects was for a South Korean company that they were doing furniture designs mostly. They wanted to launch this new brand for home furniture. And so from the naming to website to styling, choosing the colors, and many product designs were from Claudio Bellini. And I was responsible for this project. So at the end, they gave my name to one of the sofas because I couldn't sign any of the products, which was very sweet. So I always keep it in all the presentations. And there's a sofa called Rüya in South Korea. But so it was a very, very interesting project also because I had no idea how to do this. But when we went to Seoul with Bellini, he told me one day, okay, you have the color workshop. Color and material workshop. And I was like, oh, what do I do? How do I do it? And he said, you will figure it out. I don't know, you know it better than me. So I was always put into these positions that I had no experience, but that taught me how to do things in my own way, actually. So this was also for them, like their showroom. We just gave consultancy of the style for this one, didn't do the drawings. And after working for Bellini for like, I think, this was like after 3 years or so, I said, we need to change also the visual because we now changed the team, we now changed the clients, we are doing different things, but we also need to show this to everybody. So I did a little bit of research of like agencies, and we worked with one Milanese agency to do a full rebranding for the Bellini studio, which was being the client in a design project was very interesting because we didn't like anything. It was like so difficult for them. But at the same time, we arrived to a point that it was like we got consultants, they did everything, but we almost did everything as well. So for all the website of Claudio Bellini, I spent months on it, working every detail, which also gave me the point of view of being your own client or being the client in a design project. So this was a very, very interesting thing. We did all the shootings, everything was like branded. And now everything is branded with Claudio Bellini design, which brings a great value apparently.
Yeah, the transformation was big, I remember that.
Yes. So some other products that I designed during my experience working at Claudio Bellini was there was this table that has one single leg that you can put multiple of them. You can make different shapes of coffee tabletops, and it creates this variety. It's just one single piece that can extend. This was sound absorbent panel system that is like for offices. So the idea was to bring some nature inside the space, but even if it's dark and it's sound absorbent panels, it gives this like forest idea. This was another project for, again, Natuzzi. They're from Puglia, south of Italy, and they have this, they're crazy about where they are, their territory. So they were like, the brief is Puglia. So I inspired from the seashells and the waves. So it was designed to be in that style. And while I was working for Claudio Bellini, there was also Lara Bellini, which was doing bags in the studio. So I was like, very interesting. I love that. So I also got to design. I mean, I followed most of the like color selection and production parts, like the details and so on. But also this collection especially was my design. So it was like these two compartments that opens up with these ears, let's say.
So it's a wide range actually of products. So
yes,
you
it says
cover up the whole 360 degrees
yeah,
of design.
yes, which is so much fun. I mean, when
Yeah.
it's one concentrated on one single thing, it gets more repetitive, I believe. Otherwise, when you change, for instance, for this packaging design was for a company like a very old school, they had all these thin stripes. So they were like, what can we do? And then the idea was here, this is the first concept, but this blooming feeling, because they also had these roses. So this feeling of the bottle is like blooming instead of having these thin stripes. But after this, for instance, going back to furniture, it gives you another perspective.
Okay, well, actually, I have to say that I'm not surprised, but what was your path? Because I remember even as a student, even if you didn't have any experience, was one of your main talent was exactly your taste and your capability to like coordinate colors, materials, and how to put everything together in a very coherent and harmonious way. So I can imagine that in the end, CMF was one of your biggest and strongest tasks. So, okay, now we see Tori fell. It's a teaser. Okay, no, come on, now you gave us the teaser. Let's not this point, we definitely want to know what happened next, your following professional experiences.
Yes, so I was very happy at Claudio Bellini and I was the studio director. So all the projects were literally passing through my table. It was like, I was even surprised how I arrived there so fast, in my opinion, from internship to studio director in 5 years. I mean, also right place, right time. It didn't seem like that at the beginning. So after all this experience, I started wondering what's next, what more. And being a Turkish person in Milan and having the opportunity at that point to be able to also go to maybe other countries to discover other perspectives of design was like triggering me. Like since a while, I was like, what can I do? Also, even in Italy, I was trying to apply to these top designers, because the idea was like, okay, I worked for Claudio Bellini, which is a very good designer, very good firm, very good name. But what if I work for the best, one of the top 5? What is it like? Because I was always willing to do it, but I never got this opportunity. There was always something. And Italians, also Turkish, they have this saying, there's always a reason if something doesn't happen. So I waited for the right time. And this time was COVID times, which was a bit of a crazy decision. But right before the pandemic started, I actually applied to a few studios, and I was like, I think this year, 2020 is the year that I make a change. And then right before, I think it was like December or January 2020 or December 19, I'm not sure. I received a phone call from Philip Stark's studio, and they were like, "Oh, Rüya, can you come? Can you come to Paris?" And I was like, I cannot come to Paris, but maybe we can do a video conference. And they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's suitable for us as well." And because I was working, and they were like, "Can you come tomorrow?" Yeah. So I was like, "Not tomorrow. If you want, I can come next week, or we can do a video call. If you're interested, then I come next day." Okay. And they were like, okay, then we set a video call. And then I thought I was going to meet the HR manager, or I don't know, it's Philip Stark. So I'm expecting this meeting with someone from the company. And then I open my computer, I sit down in front of it, someone opens it and says, "Oh, hello, Rüya. Okay, the connection is perfect. And I'm just passing you to Philip." And I was like, so I got to like directly interview Philip Stark like that. And he was right in front of me. I mean, he's like a design, he's a famous person in
Yeah.
design. So I was like very much shocked. Then it went so great. He was like, I think we connected, it clicked. I like you, just come as soon as possible. So I supposed to move immediately, but of course, being a studio director, I couldn't leave my job just like that. So I needed some time in between, at least a month and a half, if not more. So I was thinking, how am I going to do this? While I was thinking this, and while they were thinking what to propose me as an offer, the pandemic started. And then I just moved my computer from office to home. We were one of the first studios actually closed up because we were so crowded. I said, there's no need, we can do it online. So we all moved home. And it was a crazy time. Then I had to actually move while everybody was at home. And I mean, it's not easy as a Turkish person to move between European countries, even though if you have the permits and all that.
Yeah.
So it was very, very, very complicated, really one of the most stressful times. But then in 2020, during the pandemic, I started in the worst country of the pandemic happening, and I moved to the second worst for the third wave. Paris was the worst, and I was in Paris. An amazing experience to work with him because he is really a genius. He sends these drawings that are like perfect. And sometimes you even feel like, what am I even doing? Because these projects are so good, like anybody can draw these from these technical drawings. He is like so precise, he knows what he wants. And I mean, for me, it was an amazing experience to work with such genius in that sense. He's like a visionary. So what happened next was actually like all the stars aligned sort of situation, because when I decided to leave Paris, I first went back to Milan because I was, at that point, I was from Milan feeling wise. So I first went back to Milan, and meanwhile, I started searching in Istanbul if I could, because one client I have gotten was a Turkish client. So I wanted to have an office in Istanbul. So it was also a great opportunity. I missed my city, I missed my friends, my life, my family. So I was like, okay, perfect. Maybe if I get like a small studio space in Istanbul, then I can actually go there more often. I have a place that I can work from. And meanwhile, I can keep the, Milan-based studio idea in Milan and everything. And that was the point that I found this location, which is very difficult to find. And it's in a very historical and like a pretty neighborhood called Karaköy. Maybe some.
I know, it's beautiful.
Yes. And so I started working in the interiors, but then I was like, before the interiors, there must be something that I need to decide. Because doing also the experiencing with Claudio Bellini, okay, I need to set my base pretty well. I need to design myself a good logo. I need to do like a proper name, proper website, decide what is the look of this studio. Because also being like a new designer, nobody knows you. Nobody's gonna call you the next day. There's this designer now. There are millions of designers, so I needed to make a branding for myself. So I worked on like the whole branding of like from website to business cards to the studio. So when I started with the studio, I had already very clear idea of like what are going to be the colors, what's going to be the look and everything. And I took this place, and it's very, very small. It's like 30 square meters. It's like 2 rooms. One is very, very small and one is a little bit bigger. And then it was a little bit dark on the backside. So actually we built almost everything inside. So opened up and then make this like glass door and change all the pavement. Unfortunately, the old one was not I couldn't utilize it. And so the ceiling was, they lowered it for some reason. We took it back up and we did like a full restoration inside. And this became the iconic part of the studio, which like with all the, my feminist design books, this woman design, and the little Alessi workshop I attended, the little award thing there. And like something from me, like I tried to make it as personal as possible. And at the same time, as much giving the idea of what's my style, because I had no products that have been produced or anything. So yes,
it's you in one window. it's you in one window.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So even for this meeting table, which is my table that I work on also, I spent like, I think 4 months for it, because first I designed the legs, then I found a place to produce it, and then they have been produced. Then I didn't like any texture of the surface. Then from Italy, I found a person that brings some Italian ceramics that's like marble finish, but I didn't want marble fake finish. Then it was like all this back and forth, and it took me so long. But then now it says something about me. So it's like these tactile finish on it, and like even the textures were important when we did, like even the handles of the door. I went crazy with like, and also in Turkey, it's not easy. They're not used to someone coming, I want this glass door, but exactly like this, with handles exactly like this, and then with the door, and then they were like, no, but we do, no, you do it. It was not very easy, but it was fun, I have to say, now when I look back. But at that point, it looked like this will this work, quite kind of exciting.
Cool. And now that you have your own studio, so and like thinking again what you said about the different approach, the different methods. So which is your own one? So you defined your own methodology to what you usually apply for a project.
Oh, so I mean, what I apply is that, of course, I mean, it changes a lot each time, because sometimes, like for instance, there's one sofa I design, it's going to be produced, so I won't be able to show it, but it's like I was actually in Stockholm at that time again, and I had to work from it's like my husband's parents' place. So I was like searching for a table to work, and then I also at the same time wanted to watch some TV. It was like very confusing, and then I came up with this idea and I designed it. I made a presentation. Then when I found a client that I think it's suitable, then I have presented. But sometimes you start from a different part, like you start from briefing. Sometimes it's an idea that comes to my mind, so I always have a pen and a book. But
yep.
Sometimes it starts from the company, but generally, it's like what is the thing I never give up from is that I like to design things which have an aesthetic feeling, which is like this gives, like, I think my Italian side, the one I learned from Italy, that things needs to be aesthetic, good looking to the eye, but at the same time they need to be functional. And they need to make sense. I don't like to design objects that are just because it's iconic and it doesn't make so much sense. Sure. So I like objects that like also more from a minimalist point of view, you know, like just the essential, taking the essential, which I mean, also even this dining table that just came out, I think explains it a little bit.
This one, this is your last project?
Yes, this is, so I can show you a little bit of my designs.
Yes, please.
So this was like a dining table I designed, and the idea was like how to make something very minimal, but still has design touch. So, okay, 4 legs. No, so but then the tabletop needs to be iconic, because actually when you look at a dining table, the first thing when you sit down, you don't see the legs, but when you're dining on it for hours with your friends, family, you're sitting on the tabletop. So the tabletop is perfectly smooth. So it gives this feeling of like this important thing to hold. And for the actually perfect, like the dynamic with the legs, so that it doesn't shake and everything, we needed like more points. So these legs are actually the same leg, and put like 180 degrees on the other side. And when we put them closer, since they are not exactly symmetrical from the top view, they can also create amazing, like, they sort of do like different positioning, and you can make like round table and so on. And now maybe they will make it in glass top. So I think it will be a little bit more visible. This is another project that just came out in Istanbul Furniture Fair. This one was like, we started working with this client and they asked us like, we need new office chairs, lounge, visitor chair, like this whole collection. So this was Tux, which is actually comes from tuxedo. So it's like suit, you know, tuxedo suit. So it's not just like a standard chair in the office, but it has a little bit more of a iconic touch to it. And it's sort of like when you have a lot of them together, from the back you don't see the mechanism, it hides it. So that was really the idea. And then I like to use these layers in my designs mostly. So this was one of those pieces. This was the other line, again, designed for the same brand. This is a little bit more in the usual look, but still like having these perfect rounds in front and then connecting with this like sort of hugging feeling. That's why it's called teddy. So it's like a teddy bear that is hugging you. So yeah, I like to also play with like words and names and in my projects.
Yeah, that was still part of the project, and also you perceive it differently.
Yeah. This was actually one of the, this is actually the first product came out with my name. It's for this Italian brand Hero, and they are doing like these small competitions for young designers. All of you can attend. And this was like when I was really like, I didn't know what to do. I was like searching for all these competitions, and I found this and I was like, okay, I'm just going to send them a design. And it was one-day project. So in the morning, I set up my mind. I said, I'm just going to do this project today. And in the evening, I delivered it. And after 2 weeks, they called me. They said, we are producing it. Because it was so like basic for me. Okay, umbrella holder. What can be doing an umbrella holder perfectly? Holding both sides perfectly. The small size that is you hang, the other one you put. How can I do this? Okay, this. And it was just like very simple. So they loved it, and it's their bestseller now. It sells so much, it's crazy.
Wow.
Like yeah, it's like they love it. So it was such a good experience with them. Then they asked me also to design other stuff. So I designed like this kitchen sottopentola. I don't know these things in English, in Italian. It's like these, yeah, like this when it's hot, the pot thing you put under, or like the spoon holder, or like this paper towel holder. So the spoon holder is also quite smart. It has this slight inclination. So when you put the spoon, it doesn't leak outside. It actually goes, collects them inside. The one on the left, which is a little bit more graphic, it was inspired from the Italian gardens. So these very organized labyrinths looking from the top view. So that was like, this collection was called Italian. And then I called this part Giardini to make it associated with the gardens. So this was the project I did for Alessi. They loved it, but they never produced it. But it was this pocket mirror. So this project was for like to design something for a journey. So this was like a round, from the top, it's a perfectly round object. And you can, with one hand, you can just open it with like just pushing from the sides. And it had like 2 types of mirror. And so what else I do nowadays is that, because my products are just recently coming out and so on, but I do art direction, as I learned from Bellini Studio, because I did it so much, I had to continue. And in Turkey, companies are not there yet as like Italians, they need more support. So this is one of the companies that I work with, that also the dining table came out from them. And I do there almost everything. So from showrooms to, I don't know, like design, like fair booths to product design, to other designers' product designs, checking like everything. So I'm the person to call when they have any questions about design. So this is like some showrooms that we adjusted and chosen all the colors and materials also for each showroom. And this is like a booth design. This is another, but these are from last year. Actually, this year we designed new ones, but these are from last year. But just to give you an idea, like I also go and get some Italian fabrics, bring them to Turkey, introduce them to each other, because to add this Italian background to the Turkish market. So this is the CMF workshop we had done for ARSA. And so yeah, basically here we decide every single object, how they need to be rendered. But at the same time, also like the moods of like more minimal, more contemporary, and a little bit more classic. What would be the difference, the distinction between them? What type of wood would be matched with what kind of lacquer, and then what kind of textile? So these are some of the results to give you an idea. On the left is more minimal, and on the right is a little bit more classic feeling. Of course, meanwhile, we also do graphic design. But we don't do graphic design just to, you know, like design, but we do it in art direction. So this was one of the clients we have as an art direction, but they were designing these wall accessories in metal. And when I went there first, they had this huge factory. They have this huge factory because they produce also for mechanical things.
Okay.
And so more like commercial things. And they have this little design company that sells a lot of like these wall, CNC cut wall decorations. And first thing I said, if I design something for you here, it would get lost. Nobody will see it. Why would you pay me to design something to put in between hundreds of thousands of designs? So I told them, let's do a rebranding first. So we did a rebranding and then change all their catalog and then eliminated some products and make it like a clean cut. And after that, I told them, let's launch a new brand because I don't want to design a whole product. So we launched this new brand in Turkey, which is quite successful. And so it's the idea is actually a little bit similar to Hero even. But so since they had a lot of metal and they have unlimited opportunities of production, we collected a good like design team from them. And then with my art direction, we did like a full collection in 6 months and presented it in Maison Objet Fair in Paris. So yeah, also here, like from the name to branding to catalogs to booth design to some of the products, we have been like fully involved. So I wrapped up this. This
That's
part.
cool.
I mean, so this page is something that I really like to talk about, but do you want to first say something? I don't.
No, I mean, I feel like also your career path is really speaking by itself. Like, I really love how you approach that. You always don't think just like, okay, let's do this, but let's care about the overall context that is around that project. So I think that is very inspiring, and really like you gave us a really clear idea about your art direction project and how actually you exactly how it did from the zero you arrived to like, okay, let's rebrand everything and everything has to take shape. So I leave you to wrap up, as you said.
Yes, no, I mean that is so true. And in actually my success in credibility design was due to also that. They used to call me Secondo me Rüya.
Yeah.
Because I was going and always saying, in my opinion, to everything that you can imagine. And when I think it is right, when I think it is like, this could add something to it, I was not hiding my opinion. And I think that makes a huge difference. That's how I think I also had like great success in.
Also because, you show that you care. Anyway,
Yes.
that you really want that because you really want to do it properly and you want to do it good in the right way.
I really enjoy.
So
designing.
Exactly. So I can imagine that you are like then it becomes like you change the mood of the thing. So everybody then really okay, let's do this. Let's improve it.
Yes. So actually,
go.
So putting that all together, actually. So here I mean, knowing that most of the it's mostly students that are listening, and at least I'm hoping that they have some inspiration from this. So I want to say this because when I present these things, they always say, oh, how lucky. She's very lucky. But I just prepared this page just to say that it's not about luck, and I do not believe in luck, or the luck that just comes out of nowhere, that doesn't exist. So what I put here is like some ingredients. So the ingredients are your personal background. Okay, the school you choose. For me, okay, I went to great schools. I went to Domus Academy. That has changed everything about my career. And then at the same time, even though it's very, very important, we went to Domus Academy with a bunch of other people as well, but they are not all at the same position. So that means self-improvement. So one needs to really want to learn, want to do it, and like force to have this. And like learning different languages, learning, and not stop looking at things and trying to improve your skills. And so when you have these things together that are balancing each other, or like you support your background with your self-improvement, then when you search, meaning you really apply to everything, you try to go to all the events, you try to meet everybody. When you see someone, you don't think twice, but go and talk and present yourself, then it's not luck that finds you, but you create so many opportunities, at least one of them, then answers. So I just don't want you to think in mind, she was lucky, I won't be lucky, or I may not be lucky. It's not like that. So, you know, if I stop doing what I'm doing and forcing it this much today, I won't be as lucky tomorrow. This is all going to be forgotten. So that's all I want to say about this part.
No, I agree. You cannot relate it to luck. Let's say, because what we see is so you fall, and then of course you succeed, and of course we see everything that you succeed. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. I'm sure it's super useful for the students. So guys, never give up. It's not about luck. It's just to try and try and try, and yeah, I mean, you will succeed.
I asked last time I saw Patricia Urquiola, you know how obsessed I am with Patricia Urquiola. I interviewed with her 2 or 3 times at the end, by the way. Like I kept interviewing. I was like, I'm gonna do this. But at the end I said, okay, I opened my own studio, I won't work for her. But last time I saw her, she was in Istanbul doing a presentation, and there were like question and answer at the end. And I asked her, did you know that you would become the Patricia Urquiola you are today? What motivated you to be like this? I just said, like, I'm at the beginning of my career, personal career. I mean, I want to be like you. So what is and she said, she gave me a perfect answer. The only answer I wanted to actually hear. She said, what? Consistency. I was consistent. I wanted to be a designer. I worked hard. It was all about consistency. I didn't give a break. I kept doing what I like to do and what I want to do. Exactly. So I was, okay, this is the answer. So yeah, exactly. You apply her advice without even knowing. Yes, exactly. So I know that here you prepare a little bit, again, what we said before. So your design process now, what you apply for a project. So please. So I'm just gonna go fast because I think it's more or less the same. Also we are already 1 hour. Oh my God. Has been okay. So I go to the last page. No, it's okay. It was wonderful to see your path. So I just say like quickly. Okay, so as you know, it starts from brief or research. Either research, you search in the company's profile, what is missing, what's the gap, or they give you a brief. Then you prepare presentation. It's exactly like at the school, actually. Then the client gives you a feedback. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes not. Depending on that, you continue to design development. This is where you do all the detailing and all that. And in this, you need to be really working with client. Working with client is like working with a team. So then it passes to the final drawings and prototypes. Then you review the prototypes. Some designers, they don't go and review prototypes, which is, for instance, this shouldn't happen. Like a designer should sit on the chair that they design. It's very, very important, prototyping. And then production and market launch. So I like to keep an eye on all the process. So this is just an example to explain you what is the process in product development. So it's, okay, the first one is like this research. I like to search for like old designs, very like 90s, 60s designs. Then what's the concept? So some basic sketches. Then, okay, maybe a Photoshop render or like a nicer render. These are like quite old projects, but I like to show this. And then prototyping, okay, you fight with the people who says they cannot do it, you say they can do it, and you know, that part. And then the project comes out. So this is like a perfect. Of course, it's not as perfect. Usually you go back and forth.
Yeah, it usually takes 1 year, let's say,
Yes,
for just the
yes,
students that
at
listen
least.
to us. It's at least
least.
1 year of work.
So, for instance, this is a sofa that, you know, it opens up for more relax and more tight seating. And so just like the ingredients for personal, there's the ingredients also for products in my methodology, at least. So the function needs to be there. Design and production adds a lot to it. So I will give you an example to explain this. And a CMF is not a color you put on the rendering while you're doing your final presentation, but it's something that you need to put a big thought about. So this is why. So the garbage bin you have all at home. So the left one is the standard, the most standard garbage bin.
Yeah.
When you take that, get it produced by a good producer, and then add a little bit of a design value, adding some curves and all that, it already changes everything. And then when you give it a color and the finishing, that makes it original. I mean, the second and the third image are exactly the same product. The only difference is the CMF. So this is how important and how much it adds value to the design.
Yeah, and that's also mostly what make the difference between a common industrial project and to design, like
Yes.
to care about the perception of the object and the object in the world context. It's not just itself in a shell.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rüya, for sharing, and thank you so much, Irene, for being the perfect person.
Thank you. Thanks to you.